PCL 650 presents your source for leading-edge news and information on today's hottest products and services. This is Experts on Call.
And welcome to the show. I'm Zach Spencer, and today we have Key Pacific Property Management here, along with a number of trusted strata industry professionals. They're developing a resource designed to connect strata councils with high-quality, reputable strata-related service providers. And it's a show we call StrataLife, and it's everything to do with living in a strata. And we talked about it many times. Some people, you know, when they move out, their first property is a strata. Sometimes they end up with a detached home and then maybe downsize to a strata, or maybe they live in a strata their entire, ownership experience. So it's a very important part of the Lower Mainland with so many stratas out there. So let's go around the table and introduce our guests here today. Drew Grout is back again, Director of Strata Services from Key Pacific Property Management. Welcome back.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Also, we have David Shepard. He's the Director of CanStar Restorations. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
And Gordon Lai is back. He's the Client Executive and Vice President of CMW Insurance. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me back.
All right, so let's go around the horn and talk a little bit about what your businesses do. So Key Pacific Property Management, I'm guessing you manage stratas. Is that how it works?
Yeah, our primary business is assisting strata councils in managing their common assets and the common property. We've been doing this for about 19 years now. And we also provide other management services for rentals, sales, and that sort of thing. But our primary focus is strata management, and working right alongside a myriad of different people.
So what, you can be as large or as small as the strata decides. You can take over everything or partial jobs inside the strata?
We can provide services as basic as accounting, and what we refer to as full service, which would be accounting and dealing with all other matters relating to Strata Corporation, basically as directed by the strata councils.
So Key Pacific is the sort of the point group that a strata would have to then bring in other services, right?
Yes.
So you recommend, our
clients look to us to have a group of trades and services that would help them accomplish what they want to accomplish. So that's why we deal with these two gentlemen on a regular basis.
All right. So David Shepard is the Director of CanStar Restorations. You get the call when something goes wrong. Is that basically it?
Absolutely.
So what services does CanStar provide?
So like most restoration companies, we started out very much in the consumer world doing single-family homes and that sort of thing. Over time, we evolved into working with companies like Gordon's and doing lots of insurance work. And then, as you mentioned earlier, the Lower Mainland is, because of property values, has morphed into multiple family buildings of one sort and another, strata being a huge part of that. And we had to adapt our company to be prepared for that. It's a little bit different, as we're probably going to talk about later on. It's a little bit different equipment. It's a little bit different approach when you're dealing with a lot of people in an area like that. And you're infringing on everyone's location. So, of necessity, we've become a lot bigger, and we're a couple of hundred people now, and 100 trucks, and we've very much adapted into the strata world and dealing with the property management world.
So we'll get into a little bit of what kind of projects you are called in on, like floods and fire and things like that, right? So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Now, Gordon, you are the person they call when there's a claim, right? Yes. And so you're the one who helps with insurance, not just, I'm sure you do individuals, but you're dealing with the strata's insurance, right? So explain the difference.
So in a strata corporation, the corporation itself, when it's built under the Strata Act, that's insured by the strata corporation. And individually, each unit owner still needs to get insurance for their own personal content, any improvements they have in the unit, liability, or if they rent out the unit, coverage for the rental loss, things like that. But mainly we do the shell, but beyond that, because if you imagine when a development is done before anyone moves in, we insure everything that's in there. And that's under the setup. That's dictated by under the Property Strata Act of British Columbia.
So if there's a claim to common areas, say the roof leaks or something like that, you get called.
Yes.
Okay, I understand.
Yes.
And then you also have insurance to protect the directors of the strata, too.
Yes.
And we'll talk a bit about that as we go along. All right, so we have our mailbag, Drew. This first one, the first set of questions are for you. You ready?
I think so.
Are you psyched? All right. This first one says, we have a bylaw that limits the number of rentals in our strata at any one time to 5. I'm aware of at least 9 that are non-owner occupied. The most recent council meeting minutes indicate they just approved another unit for rental. How can this be? Don't they have to follow the bylaws?
Yeah, they do. It's not to say that they're not necessarily. A couple of interesting points with respects to rentals is stratas that had the Form J filed before 2010 allowed for the right to rent of an owner to transfer from the developer to the first owner. If that first owner sold to a second owner, they would be subject to any bylaws that might be in place at the time. So you hear the word grandfathered. Often original owners way back then would be grandfathered, meaning they would be exempt to a rental restriction bylaw that came subsequent to their purchase. Once it started after 2010, the developers, if they're completing their Form J's properly, they're going to be indicating that each and every strata lot has a right to rent for like 99 years.
Okay.
And that right will transfer from owner to owner to owner. Hence, less the need for having rental restriction bylaws. So if you have one in place and you have the limit's 5, you can have 9 because 4 of those or more of those are exempted owners. It could be because the Act also allows for other exemptions, such as for hardship, which could have been the case where this council approved one, even though there were 9. It could be based on hardship.
So hardship might be you can't really afford to maintain the place and you need to rent it?
Well, in simple terms, yes, but hardship is really going to be determined by the council. They're the ones who have to believe there's some financial hardship, and they can ask to look at all sorts of personal financial information and make that determination. But they can make that exemption. So if you have 5, they can allow a 6 for that reason. So the bylaws are in place establishing this, and they may be following it, they may not be, but it's not uncommon that you'll see a situation, particularly older stratas, where they're moving down to 5 from 25 through attrition.
Okay, the next question says, over the years, our townhouse strata has allowed owners to paint and alter windows and entry doors. A recent engineering report shows several altered windows were leaking and damaging our envelope. Since the unit made the windows changes that caused the issue, we plan to charge the owner for the envelope repairs. One of them is saying they can't because the windows and envelope are common property. Who's right?
Well, this is one of the situations where we probably suggest that the council have us get some legal advice because of what's happened in the past. Typically, the Strata Act and the bylaws of Strata Corporation provide that the Strata Corporation is responsible for repair, maintenance of doors and windows. However, an owner may ask for approval to make some changes, and what we do typically would, assuming the council approves this, have that owner sign of assumption of liability. So if any problems moving forward come from that, they will take responsibility. In the absence of that, an owner can argue it's common property. It's under the repair and maintenance requirements of the Strata Corporation. I don't have to fix it. So you have to really have the basis for which you can charge that back. And if you haven't got that in place, then you may not be successful in doing that.
Well, I would find it surprising that someone would be allowed to alter their units, windows, and doors. Most stratas, what I'm thinking as a layperson is that they want everything to be uniform. Is that typical? Yeah,
generally that's the case. I've seen over the years where older buildings have had single pane windows, and an owner.
Those must be old.
And an owner, and the strata hasn't, and it is not considering changing them all out. But an individual owner is asked to change theirs out.
They're not drafty and all those things.
Right, and they're more efficient. Work.
And they open and close.
So. The council may say we're prepared to approve that, assuming that the look from the outside is very much in keeping with the existing look. But you will take responsibility for the installation, all of the costs, any permits or anything that's required. And if anything comes of that, if it leaks 2 years from now, you're going to play a role.
But if you had that paperwork in place beforehand, then you have a way to go back on it. If
Yes.
you don't, then
it can be argued that you approved me to do it, but you never said I had to take care of it 5 years later.
All right. Next question says, we had a huge fight at our AGM after a close vote. Can you clarify what constitutes a majority vote? Is it 50 plus 1 or is it more?
It's if you look at the definition under the Act, it says more than half the votes cast must be cast in favor. So more than
and
half.
And it's only the ones that are cast.
That's right.
That doesn't mean if there's 100 units that 50 units have to vote.
If you have 150 people registered and only 100 vote, then it's going to be half of the 100 votes cast. Now, something to keep in mind is not all strata have one unit, one vote. Some, particularly in commercial mixed-use stratas, you'll have people with fractional votes. They have 3.6 votes, and this one has 2.3. And the residential all have one each. So half plus, or more than half, could be, in the case of 100, it could be 50.3.
Right.
But generally, it's going to be half plus 1.
Okay. All right. The first floor owners of our building have patios that are limited common property. The drains are clogged and the patios collect rainwater. The owners on the higher floors resent paying for this work. If the first floor people are using the patios exclusively, shouldn't they have to pay for the maintenance? But that's people, I don't get to use it, so why do I have to pay for it? You must get that a lot.
You do get that a lot. Why am I fixing their balcony? I don't have a balcony. But you buy for the look, and you buy the strata as it is, and even though it's their balcony, you're a part owner of that balcony. So they're part owners of that drain. But if that drain's on a limited common property, which decks usually are, the owner's responsible for regular maintenance, keeping the leaves off, keeping it clean so it doesn't get blocked. So
that's not up to the, say, Key Pacific to come around and clean it.
No.
Or you order somebody to come around and clean it. You're supposed to look after that as an owner.
You're supposed to look after general care, maintenance, sweeping, cleaning. And it's not us that tells them what to do. It's the Strata Corporation that's requiring them to do that. We're the ones who, to
call in a service.
Do the work for them and make sure it gets done. However, that being said, a person could be cleaning the leaves and everything off, and for some reason the drain in the ground gets blocked. It could be a root growing through it.
Sure.
That is the Strata Corporation's responsibility to take care of. But if they find that the drain's blocked because the owner hasn't been doing what they're supposed to do, then there can be some repercussion for that owner.
All right, we have many more questions in our mailbag, and we'll get to the ones we missed towards the end of the show. But we're going to take a break now. And when we come back, we're going to be speaking with David Shepard, the director of CanStar Restorations, and we have some questions for him next on CL 650.
This is Experts on Call on CL 650.